We have a big show today, lots of breaking news, including Eric Swalwell, California Democrat. Eric Swalwell, Fang lover boy, possibly in some deep legal trouble. Also, Tucker Carlson saying Trump's shooter, Thomas Crooks, was groomed, that the FBI was aware of this, was aware of him before the shooting, and that the mysterious figure who did the grooming was linked to this terror group that the U.S. State Department actively monitors. Kash Patel responding to these accusations that he's aware of all of this. We'll show you all of it. And what in the world is happening in Seattle, Washington? Wait till you see this.
Since the start of their investigation, the FBI has claimed that Thomas Crooks acted alone and that he was a virtual ghost online with no presence at all. Their only substantive claim about Crooks' motive was that he was a right-winger. We learned that from FBI Deputy Director Paula Bate, who said this to Congress just 1 month after the attempted assassination.
Something just very recently uncovered that I want to share is a social media account which is believed to be associated with the shooter in about the 2019-2020 timeframe. There were over 700 comments posted from this account. Some of these comments, if ultimately attributable to the shooter, appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes, to espouse political violence, and are described as extreme in nature.
The social media account Abate was describing was Crooks' YouTube comments. When the FBI made that claim, we had to take his word for it. We have no way to check, but now we do.
So it's been over 16 months since the president was shot in the head by Thomas Matthew Crooks. 16 months with virtually no new information. The FBI, even the current FBI with Kash Patel, Dan Bongino leading it, have yet to reveal anything new. None of his communications have been released, no official motive, no answers as to why this kid had 6 encrypted foreign email accounts. It's been 8 months since the president signed a presidential directive to the Secret Service demanding the release of every bit of information, that's a close quote, on both would-be assassins. Every bit of information Trump asked for on both Crooks and Ryan Ruth, yet nothing. Still nothing released. Did they ignore a presidential directive? How's that possible? Watch what happens when Brett Baier asks Trump about this. Watch the president's reaction and tell me if this is not telling. If it isn't, I don't know what is. Watch.
You've had 2 assassination attempts. One, obviously, where you got hit by that bullet in Butler. There's a lot of frustration that we still don't know about that shooter in Butler. And we don't know about his communications. We get stonewalled all the time asking questions about it. Is there frustration on your part? Will we get transparency? Will we know the bottom line story?
It's very interesting because we have great people. I think Pam is incredible. I think Kash is incredible. And they're doing a great job. They're being recognized as doing a great job.
But you're the president. Can't you find out?
No, I know. I'm relying on my people to tell me what it is.
Well, today, Tucker Carlson dropping a bombshell of a report called Who is Thomas Crooks? In this report, this expose, Tucker was provided never-before-seen communications between Crooks and someone by the name of Willie Tepes. Now, who's Willie Tepes? According to Tucker, he's this mysterious figure who's linked to a terror group called the Nordic Resistance Movement, a designated global terror group who's monitored and tracked by the U.S. State Department. Tucker says the whistleblower who gave him all of this information, all these communications, says right after Crooks began communicating with this Willie Tepes fellow, Crooks just goes dark, completely vanishes from the internet. Watch.
These remarks were especially notable because they came at the final phase of Crooks' YouTube commenting. At that point, a new character emerged into the conversation, a user named Willie Tepes, who started pressuring Crooks to commit violence. For example, quote, "If a gun and a badge is all that is needed, then authority obviously comes from the barrel of a gun. We have more guns than they do. There is no way we can avoid a war at this point, so you better just get used to the idea. We have nothing to lose and everything to win. And the alternative, a global police state, is unacceptable. Nothing in life is simple, but that is no argument against doing it." So who is this Willie Tepes? Unfortunately, we don't know. The FBI hasn't made any mention of him in public, although they certainly know he exists. Just days after the shooting, somebody screenshotted Tepes' YouTube account page, despite the fact he had very few followers. To the extent that he can be traced online now, you can find his username being used on a foreign Antifa website. Those sites link him to the Nordic Resistance Movement, which has been designated a terrorist group by the U.S. State Department. That's all we know. We do know, however, that Crooks' online footprint abruptly ends after his encounter with this mysterious figure, Willie Tepes. Regardless of whoever Willie Tepes is or was and what his motives may have been, who he may have been working for, there is no doubt that Crooks was ripe for recruitment by someone. From early 2019 to mid-2020, as his political views were evolving, Crooks searched for Trump more than 700 times online. He also searched for Jack Ruby, the man who assassinated Lee Harvey Oswald. He then submitted queries for craziest chemical reactions, cars running over protesters, best places for mass shooting El Paso, Trump Civil War, Orlando shooting reaction, firing an AR-15 as fast as possible, fertilizer bomb, how to make napalm, how to make Molotov cocktail, mass shooting Canada, Oklahoma bombing, and sniper in Dallas shooting. He also searched for American Nazi Party, German National Anthem 1933-1945, Hitler's speeches with subtitles, neo-Nazis, and, quote, why gays need to go. So here you have a volatile, troubled, possibly mentally ill young man with a long record of espousing violence in public. The FBI clearly knew he existed. And then you have, at the very end of his years commenting in public, espousing violence, an exchange with a mysterious figure affiliated with a group that we know is being monitored by the U.S. State Department. It turns out that around the same time that Thomas Crooks was making these searches and posting overt threats of violence against public figures on YouTube, the FBI was issuing contracts to private sector tech surveillance firms to harness the power of mass data collection tools that would monitor social media for people just like Thomas Crooks. It's hard to imagine that Thomas Crooks, who was making these posts publicly and in his own name, had not been identified and looked at closely by federal law enforcement. In fact, it's impossible to imagine. What do we know? Well, we know that the FBI had access to these YouTube comments, and rather than giving us valuable information about them, giving us a sense of why Thomas Crooks did what he did, they used a selective read of those comments to lie about what Thomas Crooks was thinking. 2.5 weeks after the attack on July 30th, a source familiar with the investigation told CNN that, quote, federal investigators are looking into a YouTube account possibly connected to Crooks in which the user espoused political violence as well as anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes. Well, of course, it wasn't possibly connected to Thomas Crooks, as the FBI knew full well it was Thomas Crooks' account. There was never any question about that. And yet the same day, the FBI's then deputy director made the same dishonest claim before Congress. The week previous, then FBI Director Christopher Wray publicly questioned whether Trump was even shot.
With respect to former President Trump, there's some question about whether or not it's a bullet or shrapnel that hit his ear.
In February 2025, the New York Post reported that, quote, the FBI has obstructed efforts to solve the mystery of why Thomas Matthew Crooks, who left no manifesto, did what he did. And this fact, said the Post, left local law enforcement as well as Crooks' former friends, classmates, and teachers frustrated. The level of lying and obstruction is shocking. Less than a month after the shooting, Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana, a former police officer, traveled to Butler to conduct his own investigation into what happened. When he arrived, he discovered a disturbing fact. The FBI released Crooks' body for cremation 10 days after July 13th. This wasn't known to the public until Higgins arrived in Butler on August 5th, when the coroner told the congressman, quote, he would never have released Crooks' body to the family for cremation or burial without specific permission from the FBI. The timing of Crooks's cremation is notable. The day Crooks's body was burned was also the day the House Homeland Security and Oversight Committees had begun their investigations into the shooting. The fact the body was cremated made it impossible for investigators outside the FBI to verify the coroner and autopsy report. You can't do a new tox screen because the body doesn't exist.
So in February 2025, Trump signs that presidential directive telling the Secret Service, ordering them to give him all info they have on Crooks. Then 1 month later, in March of this year, he publicly followed up about this. He was asked about it, and he said he wants to release the reports on the assassination attempts, but that some of the details he was showed could be suspicious. We know Eric Trump firmly believes this was all orchestrated, that Crooks wasn't a lone wolf, but that he was sent to take out his father. Watch.
What are you telling us?
I am totally unsatisfied. I am totally unsatisfied. You had a person with a modern rifle, modern scoped rifle at 130 yards who shot at the former commander-in-chief of the United States and a guy who was going to be, by all accounts at that point, the future commander-in-chief. And then they tried to kill my father 8 weeks later, you know, at his golf course in Palm Beach County, a golf course that I run every single day. I am totally unsatisfied that we have one picture of that shooter. The guy looks like he was 14 years old in the picture. We know nothing about him. We know nothing about him. Right? And I am totally unsatisfied with the result, and I think a lot of America is unsatisfied with the result, and I think we better get to the bottom of exactly what happened.
Are you telling me there's a conspiracy here that you believe, that Eric Trump believes resulted in the assassination attempt?
Yes, I think they tried to kill my father because they did not want his voice on that stage.
Look, at minimum, what Tucker's expose shows is that the feds have a lot of information, way more than was ever publicly released. Almost nothing was publicly released. So why aren't they releasing it? Kash Patel says he's waiting to release more of the info out of respect for 2 open and ongoing prosecutions. Which prosecutions are those? Watch what he said.
How come we don't have more information on the assassination attempts on President Trump?
There's 2 reasons, 2 open, ongoing prosecutions. But we have personally invested our time in making sure that we have looked at any possible international connections to terrorism and adversaries alike. And we've both been down to Quantico. We've both done the laboratory testing. We've both seen the explosives analysis. We've both seen the firearm and physically held it. We are all in on these investigations.
Are we going to be surprised at what you learned?
You know what, Maria? Kash is not kidding. We've been personally briefed extensively on every single detail, nugget, tendril of this case. One is actively in court right now, so out of respect for the case, it's probably more appropriate that I stay quiet on that. However, I'm not going to tell people what they want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth, and whether you like it or not is up to you. If there was a big explosive there, right? Given my history as a Secret Service agent, and my personal friendship, as a director does with the president, give me one logical, sensible reason we would not have. If you can think of one, there isn't. In some of these cases, the there you're looking for is not there.
What a baffling thing to say.
Which prosecutions is he talking about? Who's being prosecuted right now in relation to Thomas Crooks? Nobody. I'm not aware of any open prosecutions currently taking place involving Thomas Matthew Crooks. Nobody related to him, no one that had any connection to him. I checked, folks. Who's he talking about? Let's ask Grok. Who's being prosecuted in relation to Thomas Crooks? No one is being prosecuted in relation to Thomas Crooks. Even after President Trump's return to office in 2025, no DOJ referrals or prosecutions have been initiated against anyone in connection with the Butler attempt. So what is Kash talking about then? All of it more than a bit fishy. Let me know what you think. In another story, California Democrat Eric Swalwell, aka Fang Fang's lover boy, has been nailed for mortgage fraud. FHFA Director Bill Pulte criminally referring Swalwell to the DOJ for alleged false statements on his $1.2 million DC mansion loan application. Additionally, a mortgage and tax fraud probe is allegedly incoming. As of yet, though, no official charges have been announced. This is only a referral, but we know that this is very similar to what Bill Pulte referred Adam Schiff to the DOJ for. Also very similar to the Tish James investigation and indictment. Watch.
Breaking just moments ago, Fox can now confirm that California Democrat Congressman Eric Swalwell has been criminally referred to the Department of Justice accused of mortgage fraud. Senior White House correspondent Peter Ducey reporting live on this breaking news on Eric Swalwell from the North Lawn. Hey, Peter.
Martha, as I was walking up here to do a hit on a different topic, I got a call from an administration official filling us in that Eric Swalwell, the Democratic California congressman, has indeed been referred to the Justice Department by Bill Pulte, who is the head of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac right now, because he is accused of making false or misleading statements on a mortgage application. We believe that this pertains to a $1.2 million house that Swalwell has in the Washington, D.C. area.
Representative Swalwell claiming these are fake accusations, just like the charges against Adam Schiff, he says, and Letitia James, that they're fake. Really? Is that so? I don't think so, because we've seen the mortgage documents in the Letitia James indictment. She has been indicted. So, yes, the allegations are very much real.
It's all nonsense, of course, Laura. It's nonsense that they're investigating Adam Schiff. It's nonsense that they're investigating Tish James. It's nonsense that they're investigating Lisa Cook, all for the same thing. And next week, when we hear about someone else who's a political opponent of Donald Trump being investigated, it will also be nonsense. And of course, I am one of the most vocal critics against Donald Trump. I have the only lawsuit that survived him becoming president, me and the January 6th officers. I'm a little surprised, frankly, that it took him this long to get to me, but it's not going to shake me. The other individuals, Schiff, James, Cook, and myself, we're not going to hide under the bed. We're not going to be silent or go away. We are going to hold a lawless president accountable. So if the aim is to make us shrink, it's not going to work.
Eric Swalwell, mind you, is the same Democrat who was caught doing the dirty with a Chinese spy named Fang Fang. He also was a top purveyor of misinformation around the Trump-Russia collusion investigation. So, I don't know, maybe what goes around comes around. Let me know what you think. In another story, Seattle, Washington just elected their next mayor, 43-year-old socialist Katie Wilson. Another real old school socialist, not some democratic socialism type candidate. We're talking real Soviet style, seize the means of production type socialist, being dubbed currently the West Coast Zoran Mamdani. She's promising to spike taxes on everybody in the city to pay for shared communal housing, free childcare, guaranteed housing, free K-8 summer care, and even shifting land and wealth from corporations to community control, private land seizures. Scary stuff, folks.
There's an awful lot that I want to accomplish as mayor. I want everyone in this great city of ours to have a roof over their head. I want universal childcare and free K-8 summer care. I want world-class mass transit. I want great, safe public spaces where kids can run around with abandon. I want stable, affordable housing for renters. I want social housing. I want much more land and wealth to be owned and stewarded by communities instead of corporations. I want a robust economy with thriving small businesses, great living wage jobs, and strong rights for workers. I want a city where everyone has the basics of a dignified life, including healthy food, access to health care, and supportive communities. I want a city where your health and your life expectancy and your children's future doesn't depend on your zip code or your race. I believe that I will be stepping into office with a strong mandate to pursue this vision. I believe it is notable that all of that money focused on attacking me, but not my vision or platform. And that is because this vision and platform are supported by an overwhelming majority of Seattle residents, as demonstrated by the resounding victories of the other progressive candidates running for office in Seattle this year.
What's funny is that this lady's 43 years old and still relying on her parents for financial stability. Her parents allegedly send her checks regularly, monthly apparently, to help support her family and cover childcare costs. Is this the best choice to run Seattle? Let me know what you think. Seattle houses some of the largest corporations in the world. Amazon was founded and headquartered in Seattle. So was Microsoft, Nordstrom, Starbucks, and more. How long until all of these companies decide to leave and relocate somewhere else where it's cheaper, where you can keep more of your hard-earned money, like Austin or Memphis? Let me know what you think. Washington State used to be a very low tax state. They had 0% income tax. They also used to have 0% capital gains tax. Now they still have 0% personal income tax, but they do have a capital gains tax, a state capital gains tax now. But look, this is moving in a very predictable direction. They're going to follow Oregon, also California's tax policy. It's coming. It's unfortunate because Seattle is a beautiful city. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.